The third and final variation for our teardrop earrings is this beaded wire wrap. There are so many different colors of beads that you could choose from, which makes this design even more fun to play around with. When attaching the wire and adding the beads, there are a couple of different ways you can do it. When attaching the wire, you can wrap it straight across or at an angle like I did, depending on where you want the beads and how you want it to look. I'm going to be using the 22 gauge silver wire again. 6 inches of wire will work well for my earrings, which are about 3/4 of an inch diameter. To begin, we are going to wrap one end of the 22 gauge wire onto the teardrop, and we're going to insert it into the teardrop and wrap the short end up around towards the top of the teardrop. With my fingers, I'm going to wrap it around the teardrop as tightly as I can until I get to the end of the wire, and then I will use the flat nose pliers to finish crimping down the end. After I secure the end, I'm going to squeeze the coil together. With the end now attached, we can add the beads. I'm going with a ombre monochromatic look, so I chose black, silver, and white for my layers, but there are so many other options, and you could do the beads all the same color. You could alternate colors as you're stringing them onto the wire, and I'm pretty sure your imagination is the only limit to the different ways you can add beads for this design. Now that I have added a number of beads, I'm going to hold it against the first earring that I made and check to make sure that it is the same length. You can also count the beads as you string them onto the wire so that you know that there are the same number of beads on both earrings. Now that I have enough beads to match the first earring, I can wrap the wire onto the teardrop. To begin wrapping, I'm going to hold the first end of the wire firmly in my fingers, then I'm going to take the long end and wrap it up around towards the top of the teardrop. Holding the wire firmly against the teardrop, I'm going to take the end and wrap it 2 or 3 times around the teardrop wire. Wrapping the wire firmly but gently, pinching the coil together as you go. The size of your beads will determine how many times you should wrap the wire around before adding your next layer so that the beads are not squished together and they stack nicely on top of each other. For these seed beads, I wrapped the wire 3 times around and then brought the end up through the middle of the teardrop. Now I can add my next layer of beads, which are the silver ones. Continue adding beads until you have enough on the wire to fill the space above the first layer of beads. Now that the space is filled, I'm going to take off those extra beads because I don't need them. And then I'm going to adjust the wire so that it is centered in the middle of the teardrop. And I do this by simply pushing on the wire with my finger around the edge of the teardrop so that it has a small crease in that 22 gauge wire so that the beads sit centered in the teardrop. And now I can wrap the wire, securing the beads onto the teardrop. The same as before, wrapping the wire 3 times around, pinching the coil as we go, and then bringing the end up through the middle of the teardrop to the front of the earring. And now I will add the final layer of beads. After we have added enough beads to fill the space, and then pinch the wire so that it is centered in the teardrop. We will be wrapping the final coil a little bit differently because we will be wrapping it in between the 2 rows of beads. So we will insert the wire in between the 2 rows of beads, wrapping it tightly onto the teardrop shape 3 times. And as you wrap the wire, don't forget to tighten the coil as you go. Once I have completed wrapping the wire 3 times around, I'm going to bring the end of the wire towards the back of the earring, and then I'm going to cut it off close to the teardrop. And then using the flat nose pliers, I'm going to tighten the end of the wire against the teardrop, pinching the coil together and then tightening all the coils after I have moved the beads to be where I want them in the center of the teardrop. You can leave the rows of beads straight, but for this design I chose to bend the wires, and I will do that by holding both ends of the coils and then pulling the middle of the beads up and the coils down to create the bowed effect. Now that I have the beads matching, I'm going to attach the ear wire onto the teardrop, making sure that the front of the earring is to the front of the teardrop. Opening the loop of the ear wire with our flat nose pliers by twisting it to the side, we can then add the teardrop and close the loop. And now you have completed the beaded wire wrap variation for the basic teardrop earrings. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next class.